Hi. Teaching your child to write number 2. Yeah, it's that easy. Okay, so my name is Favor Ezebuchi and you're welcome to the channel. So if you're new here, please kindly subscribe, like and share this video. Okay, so this is another video where I will be continuing because I have kicked off with pre-writing formations, what the child needs to know before the child starts writing. And today we'll be looking at the number 2. Remember I said that you don't teach a child to start writing with, after your formations, you're writing A. No, no, no. Sorry, my A is not. Okay, you don't do that. Try to make it perfect. Okay, so you don't want to do that. This is old-fashioned. And then before you teach your child to write, what I do that has worked for me over the years is that, excuse me, the child writes number 1 to 10 because the child is getting familiar with all the curves. And yes, if your child is writing 1 to 10, doesn't mean that you're not teaching the child sounds on the other end, because when the child gets to 10, it's expected that the child has learned the sounds, the single sounds, which probably I'm going to do somehow in a different video. But today we are going to be concentrating on the sound, on the number 2. Okay, so before we enforce number 2, you want a child to please count for you, because your child obviously is already counting maybe 1 to 10 or maybe 1 to 50, 1 to 100. Counting is different from writing, please. That your child is writing number 1 and number 2 doesn't mean your child is not counting 1 to 100. Move the child in counting because he's doing it with his mouth while you're focusing on writing. There are different things. You're teaching your child orally and you're teaching your child to write. They are different. Please don't delay the child. That the child doesn't know how to write number 2 doesn't mean the child should not know how to count or should not even start learning identification of numbers or sounds and all of that, colors, animals. Please go ahead and teach the child. Don't pause the child. Okay, learning comes in different ways. Okay, so let's go back to number 2. Before I teach number 2, my child should be able to write number 1. My child should have learned the curve and should have learned dash. Oh yes. Yeah. So I'm going to say, remember this is curve. You have to go back because there are different types of curves. You have to go back to the pre-writing formations. I did a video on that, part 1 to 4. It will help you a whole lot. Okay, so your child should be able to learn a curve and a dash, right? Because that's our formation for number 2. But before I come up here, I'm going to do go back to our previous knowledge and I'll say, write number 1 for me. The child writes number 1. Good job. If the child is not writing number 1, I cannot move to number 2. And the child knows number 1 as a stroke down. So the child is saying stroke down number 1. Amazing. Make sure you applaud the child because it's very important. It goes a long, long way for the child. Okay, number 1, and I'm going to number 2. So let's count our numbers. The child is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and you tell the child, pause. Good job. Give yourself a tush clap, and the child is giving a tush clap. And you say, okay, so come up here now and let's count. We are writing number 1. The child has given number 1. Now today we are going to be writing number 2. A curve and a dash. You tell the child again, number 2. How do you write number 2? The child is saying a curve and a dash. A curve and a dash. So because you're doing this, they already know this and this. They don't know how to connect this to this, right? So what we are going to do is, for this one, you're going to hold the child's hands. You're going to hold the child's hand. So I will do, sorry, I wanted to use this. So I'm going to do, I'm going to do this. So, and then I'm calling the child to come to my whiteboard. you must have a whiteboard handy. Whiteboards, please, are very, very important, okay? Because the child is not writing in the book, so you're making everything fun for the child. So I'm going to hold the child's head because I want the child to connect curve and dash together to make one number. So I take the child and I go a curve and a dash. So the child is not taking his hands off. Please, they are not going to do this because this is what they'll give to you. So let it be a connection, okay? Let it be a what? Connection. A curve and a dash. You come over here again, a curve and a dash. Now you can see the reason why it's so important to teach them a curve differently and a dash differently, because they will need it as their formation for their writing number 2 based on formations. Now the child has traced. I'm holding the child's hands again and I'm going a curve and a dash, a curve and a dash, a curve and a dash, a curve and a dash. All the spaces, a curve and a dash, a curve and a dash. And the child is saying it with you, a curve and a dash. Now you allow the child, okay, if there's no space, you wipe off. And then you allow the child to do it. You see that the child is not perfect. He may give you like this. A curve and a dash, 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 a curve and a dash. That is what you may see. Please remember you just started off. I hope you can see this clearly. Please, you just started off and you just started off and you don't want to dull the child. Please don't. Move on with the pace in which you have done what started. Then you are done with this. You go to the child's book. You're ruling the child's line. I've always explained that. Please, let's have these lines handy. Let's have these lines handy. Okay? Give them beautiful work area. So you're going to say on the your headline, the heading is going to be trace and write number 2, right? So you do this on all the boxes. You're doing this on all the boxes. Now, by the time you get to the last bit here, you're leaving it for the child to write his or her own at the last part. This part here. Okay? So, this is for you, for the child to write in class. Because it is tracing, you must alert the parent as a teacher or a school that whenever your work comes home with tracing, it says that the parent or the caregiver or whoever is in charge in assisting for homework, the child you must hold the child's hands because it's coming with dotted lines. So you want the child needs an assistant to connect the dotted lines. Okay? Now you're going with what? A curve and a dash. You're telling the child to say it. Trace and write number 2. You put a colon or a hyphen and write a curve and a dash. So you go again, a curve and a dash. They are holding the child's hands. A curve and a dash. Now this goes on like that. Let's assume that the homework also is also, if I'm not even an assumption, the homework must go home the same way. Now when you get to the next day, which is the second day, you're coming up again to the board and you're making the child to write number 1, and then you're telling the child to write number 2. You're still going to trace again for the second day for the child to learn it. Okay? And then you continue. Now the book or the worksheet is going to come in this way. 1. Okay, sorry, I always do 2 lines. But if you have more than that, it's fine. Okay? If I have like, say, more than that, it's okay. So this is what I do down the line. So 1, 2, 2. Like that. So I'm taking this down the line. So what is the child doing? Because the child knows how to write number 1. So the child is still going to write number 1 here for me. And we come here and it's tracing number 2. Do you understand? Why am I doing this? I don't want the child to forget that after number 1 comes number 2. And I still do not want the child to forget that stroke down is number 1. So they must connect. They must connect. Whether we like it or not, it must connect. So the child is counting. Okay, count and write. 1, 2, 1, 2, like that. But if the child is perfect in tracing, then you're not going to do this. If the child is perfect in writing, please don't trace. All you're going to say, count and write 1 and 2. Count and write number 1 to 2. So the child is writing 1, 2, again, 1, 2, again, 1, 2. So the child is writing 1, 2, again, 1, 2. The child is counting and writing 2. The child must not be perfect, please. The child must not be doing this. It can come like this. Move the child. So long as you know that the child did number 2, it's a curve and connecting with a dash. But you keep doing a reinforcement. When you get to number 3, I'll show you how this looking like this can be corrected. Okay? If the child can do this, please move on. Just keep moving on and show the child what to do. Now, your work is still going to continue. The next day, you're coming to class again and you're doing count and write number 1 and 2. So the child is counting and writing number 1 and 2. And this is how your line should be, okay? So the child is writing 1, 2. Again, 1, 2. Please do not forget number 1. Like I said, you're connecting it. The child should know that after number 1 comes number 2. After number 1 comes number 2. The child counts and writes. You're not telling the child number 1, then here write number 2. No, the child should be able to count and write the next number. You're teaching the child how to do his or her task independently, please. Okay? All right. So if this was helpful, please leave a comment below and subscribe. I need you to subscribe to this channel and see you in the next video for number 3. Okay, so till we meet, bye. Thank you for watching.